Welcome to the Fit 15 podcast show, where you'll find health and fitness inspiration, motivation, and information shared in 15-minute episodes. Tune in while getting a move on to make leading and enjoying the benefits of a healthy lifestyle almost too easy. It's the Fit 15. And now your host, Catherine Basu.
Welcome to the Fit 15 podcast show. I'm your host, Catherine Basu, and I'm so excited to share this episode with you, which is part one of a conversation I had with my guest, Emily Saul. Emily is a sports psychologist who I was able to hear speak during one of the Boston Marathon seminar series back in April, and it was such an honor to have her agree to be on the podcast to share some of her insights with you. So I'm really excited to have her on. We did talk for a while, so I've split our conversation up into two parts. I recommend subscribing to the podcast so you don't miss tomorrow's episode, which will be the second half of our conversation. Today, we talk about sports psychology and what it is, how to build mental toughness, even what to think about those voices that you might have in your head, whether they're good, bad, normal, and how to maybe make them work a little bit better for you if they're not doing that right now. And then tomorrow we'll talk more about how to regain your motivation if you're maybe feeling stuck in a fitness rut, and also about the November project, which Emily is a part of. So before I bring Emily on, here's a little bit more about Emily herself. Emily has her master's degree in sports psychology and is a licensed mental health counselor. Since 2014, she has been co-leading the Free Fitness Movement November project in Boston, where she motivates and challenges athletes of all abilities and walks of life. Emily's company, Saul Movement, offers a style of sports psychology coaching grounded in clinical psychology, focused on physical movement as a tool for sparking forward movement in all aspects of your life. Welcome to the podcast, Emily. I'm so excited to have you as my guest today.
Thank you. I'm glad to join you.
So I had to have you on the podcast because I heard you speak at the Boston Marathon Expo, and I really enjoyed your insights and was laughing. And my dad, thought you were the best speaker of the whole day. And there's some pretty impressive speakers that were at that expo. So.
That's an incredible compliment. Please tell your dad thank you. It was actually it was a great opportunity for me to get to be on a panel at the Marathon Expo, and I was speaking with two dear friends of mine, and also really respected colleagues in the greater field of helping people be their best. Kara Gilman, who is a yogi and runs Run Yoga in Boston, and Amanda Nurse, who is both an elite runner. She runs for Adidas, and also does run coaching. So it was really awesome to get to speak with the two of them and share our insights about mental toughness on that panel. So.
Oh, for sure. And that's something, I never really appreciated the importance of mental toughness. I mean, you think about it, but until I got into marathoning more, and then especially after reading Dina Castor's memoir, which is, Let Your Mind Run, which is all about just how, the power of the mind to, how she used that to help her in her career. And I've definitely tried to channel her now when I run marathons to try to
for you. That's awesome.
Have a better race. So
yeah, I mean, whether it's someone you admire and respect and look up to, whose voice is in your head, or you create mantras of your own voice that really empower you or get you out of a dark space when you're in the tough spot of a marathon or whatever. I think as you just described it, it's like, we want to do these really challenging physical things, whether it's running marathons or running a 5K or, getting on a bike or going to a yoga class. Every single one of us have this really significant, loud, sometimes voice in our own heads. And I don't think it's something that we sort of talk to kids about a whole lot in terms of like, oh yeah, there's that like inner dialogue, and you can really influence and have choice about the kinds of things that you say to yourself. It's in some ways kind of a a sophisticated thing that we in general just don't talk about. Like if you walk around, in the world talking about like the voices in your head, people tend to want to try to diagnose you with something and say that there's something wrong with you. But the reality is we all have this voice going on all the time, and sometimes there are like parts of us that want to be better runners and parts of us that don't want to run at all. And so to be able to listen to that voice, but also cultivate and strengthen the kinds of messages that we want to be saying to ourselves, that inner voice and what in sports psychology is called self-talk, is really the foundation for how we build qualities like confidence. And so if you were to kind of dissect that a little bit and you were to talk to somebody who is a really confident runner, and you were to ask them what kinds of things they say to themselves before they run, during their runs, afterwards, they say supportive, affirming, positive kinds of things. They're not likely to be somebody who says things like, oh my God, I can't do this, or, I'm a mess, or those kinds of things. And if you ever find yourself just being like, I'm so slow, or I'm, these negative or critical things that really don't feel good, then you also probably feel the influence in the long term of like, how confident do you feel about those things you're doing when you say those kinds of things to yourself? And so,
Sure.
That's one of the elements of the psychology of sport, the sort of mental part of what we're doing as we move our bodies, as we are, do athletic things. It's really important to be aware of how much influence we actually can have over those things. And when we put our attention into it, we can actually really cultivate lots of skills and strengths, just like if we do drills in our sport, or we go to the gym and do weight bearing and weightlifting exercises, strength training. We can strengthen certain muscles, or even in PT, we can do the same thing with our minds. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I mean, for me, I haven't had the chance yet to work with a sports psychology coach, but just like I mentioned, just kind of trying to channel
Yeah,
some of the tips from Dina when I'm running it. It's really cool how you can change what you're doing and what you are able to achieve just by
absolutely.
talking a little bit differently to yourself. Hi, friends, it's Catherine, and that sound is your halfway point reminder if you're using the episode as I recommend you do to get in an out and back walk, but only have exactly 15 minutes. You'll want to turn around now. All right, back to our conversation. So, Emily, for those of us who have seen information about sports psychology, coaches, I know speaking for myself, I would be curious about it in college when I would see different flyers that were left out in our gym from the sports psychologist, but never really had the chance to take advantage of a session. I wasn't a college athlete. So, could you talk to us about what it's like to actually be in a session with your sports psychologist and what that process is like and what someone might expect if they were to work with you? What actually goes on in these sessions?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think a lot of people wonder exactly that. I'm glad you asked. One of the things I think actually is important for everybody to understand, is that traditionally people know of psychology, the field of psychology, and psychologist as somebody who works with you if you have mental health issues or challenges. And we often consider, because psychology is based on the medical model of being pathology based. So we look at there's something wrong with you that's creating dysfunction or disorder. And then we diagnose that, and then we treat you to try to remove those symptoms and to alleviate the pain or the discomfort or whatever that you're experiencing. And that really is how traditional psychology works. Sports psychology falls into this area of positive psychology, where instead of looking primarily and sometimes only at what is wrong with the situation or what challenges we're facing, what we're feeling struggle with, positive psychology is around optimizing who we are as human beings and not just fixing the negative things. So I like to
Mhm.
think of like as a human being, you've got kind of a baseline. If you draw a line along the horizon, and we're looking at like a graph, and traditional psychology tends to look at when you're below your baseline, how do we, help fix that and get you back to your baseline? Positive
Mhm.
psychology looks at how do we get you as far above your baseline as we can? How do we maximize your potential as an athlete, as a person? And so we look at both what is working for you,
Mhm.
and we look at what your goals are, what excites you about your sport, and we do also look at what challenges you're facing, where somebody might be having struggles with confidence or the self talk, and
Mhm.
so I might work with an athlete around training for a particular race, or if they don't have particular races that they're training for, it might be how do I look at who I am as an athlete in general, um,
Mm. Mhm.
and very simply, my philosophy about working with people is that I want to do what is meaningful for you. So if running a
Mhm.
marathon is really meaningful, great. Let's figure out why it's meaningful to you. And then
Mm.
let's look at where there are areas where there are some struggle, and let's build skills so that you can have more strengths in those areas to overcome those challenges. And then
Mm.
also let's look at what's really working for you and where there's potential that is yet untapped. And
Mm.
so we might be working on other skills to get at those. We might be working at changing some patterns of thinking, or some of those like automatic thoughts that happen. We might be connecting people more with community around them, or looking at ways that
Mm.
maybe the running that they're doing is great, but they're feeling really alone or disconnected, and so there may be a social aspect that we really want to work on for them. Um, and so ultimately each person comes with some idea of goals that they have or areas that they want to work on,
Mhm.
and then my objective is how do we help them get more out of what they're already doing, by
Mm.
enhancing the meaning that they're getting out of it. A lot of times people, when they're struggling with something, the struggle is frustrating enough or uncomfortable enough that they're like, I don't really want to keep doing this because it's
Mm.
hard, because I'm not achieving a particular goal or something like that. Say somebody has a time goal that they want, and if they're not reaching it for whatever reason, they may eventually give up because they don't get
Mhm.
enough reinforcement from the outcome of what they're doing. Um,
Mhm.
and so I might work with them around, if they really do love running, are there alternatives to quitting, and like not
Mhm.
not running anymore? And one way we might do that is looking at, what's the meaning that they're assigning to that time that they want to achieve,
Mm.
and then how do we help expand what their meaning and definition of success is, so that it's not only dependent on that one time. And that might mean really helping them experience running, not just for the time that is on the clock when they hit the finish line, but what happens all the way between the start line and the finish line, and what
Mm.
happens in the training process that allows them to feel enriched and satisfied and proud of themselves and good about what they're doing as a runner, without this one singular kind of outcome goal. Um, so I know that's a lot of description around like how it works, but ultimately I ask a lot of questions, to start out with, just really understanding what people's
Mm.
relationship is with their sport, with their movement practice. So really seeking to understand that, and then really carefully clarifying what the goals are that they want to be working on in order for their movement practice to have as much meaning as it can. Um,
Mhm.
so I also I talk often about this culture of fitness that we have, where I think a lot of people either are bought into or really clearly get the message that everybody should be active in some way. We should be, doing some fitness because it's good for us. It's healthy for our bodies. It's healthy for our minds. And some people are out and have a fitness practice that is like really satisfying for them. And sometimes people are just plugging away, kind of checking the boxes. And they might go to a class every single day, or 5 days a week. They, on their lunch break, they go and they do their fitness class, and there's something good that's happening there. And I think there are a lot of people in our culture right now who are doing fitness, but don't actually know fully for themselves why or what they're really getting out of it. So that's the other thing that is really important to me, that if people are going to do something that's physical and active and that involves their bodies, I think it's really worth knowing why you're doing it and what you get out of it, and then trying to get as much of that as possible out of it, because our lives are better when we enjoy what we're doing and aren't just like checking a box. Our lives are better when we pursue goals that are meaningful to us and we can accomplish them in ways that feel satisfying, instead of like, we spend, I think there are people who spend really long periods of time invested in achieving fitness goals. And they get to the end and they're like, I don't even know why I was doing that. And so it's important to me. It's important to me that people are like aware of and invested in, and cultivating the why and the meaning behind their movement.
Because actually, after you reach that goal, I mean, you might reach that goal, maybe it doesn't feel fulfilling if you don't feel connected to that why, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Or, if I think it makes sense, people, they might, especially running marathons, this happens a lot. People might set a goal for time, and somewhere in that choice process of setting that time goal, there's often a subconscious, like they're not really aware of it at the time, but they're setting this goal because if they achieve it, then they will feel good enough. Then they will feel fast, which means that people will think they're a good athlete, or they'll be fast, which means that, they'll be respected, or, they'll finally be proud of themselves. Or there's sort of a lot of these associations that we connect to these big goals that we put out there. And it's not that setting those goals is a bad thing by any means. Setting goals is actually really great. It's just also important to know why we're setting those goals, so that we can build a process, like an experiential process of working toward those goals that helps us to achieve not only that outcome, but what we want to feel as a result of the outcome. And sometimes it's like we don't realize that the outcome, the time itself, isn't going to make us feel good enough. It's how we talk to ourselves. It's how we appreciate the effort that we're putting in. It's how we walk through that journey of getting to the outcome that actually helps us feel the things that we want.
I love that. And I definitely can relate to having a change in mindset from a time to other things, just honestly from experiences of like having an injury and not going out for a marathon and being like, I'm just grateful to be here today, and like hopefully I'll finish, and being surprised that I had a way better time than I thought because I wasn't focused on the time.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's something that I talk with clients that I work with all the time about, that you can set a goal and you can work really hard on the physical practice of getting there. And if you enjoy yourself during the race, it will not hold you back. Like enjoying yourself can only serve to help you, right? We're not gonna reach our best times if we're miserable. Now, granted, marathon running can be painful, and can be physically challenging. But I'm very confident that the people who are out there winning marathons, like breaking the tape and arms up over their head, there is a significant amount of joy and gratitude and like presence in being able to have that experience. And it's not just about like brutally getting through. And so I'm glad you've had those experiences too, where, even sometimes injuries do force us and really expand our capacities to look at what else is there besides just the finish time.
Right.
And I think it's a valuable experience for people who have had injuries. It's sort of the silver lining, or the good that's always there, even in challenging situations. So that's helpful. Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, so if someone's listening and they're just kind of going through the motions with their fitness routine, what are some tips to help them get back and to find that why or that meaning and maybe be more present in their workouts? Hi, friends, it's Catherine, and as promised, I'm stopping by here to interrupt and pause our conversation for today. Please subscribe to the podcast, The Fit 15, wherever you listen to podcasts. I know many of you find these episodes on the Facebook page, but they're actually released on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, pretty much wherever you listen to podcasts. If you search for The Fit 15, all spelled out, you should find it. Subscribe, and then you'll get to tune into the second half of my conversation with Emily, where she'll answer this question about what to do if you're finding yourself stuck in a fitness rut, how to regain your motivation, and she'll also talk to us about the November Project, which is a really cool thing that you definitely want to learn about if you haven't heard of it already. And I'm excited to share that with you. So want to give a shout out to Emily. Thank you, Emily, for being on the show for this half of our conversation and for the next. Since I didn't get Emily to share her information for this part of the conversation, I want to let you know you can go to her website, E as in Emily, Saul, S-A-U-L, movement.com. That's esaulmovement.com to learn a lot more about Emily, and that's where you'll see just how passionate Emily is about sports psychology and all of its benefits. Really hope you get to go check that out. I will also link that in our show notes, which can be found by simply going to fitarmadillo.com/podcast. All right, so you're going to subscribe, right? Leave us a rating and review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Share the episode with anyone who could benefit from it. And until tomorrow, thanks for listening. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and awesome workout. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Fit 15. For show notes and more, visit fitarmadillo.com/podcast. See you next time.